You are watching the Atlanta Braves Fan Show on Fan Media Network. Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Siegel, joined alongside with Gardie and Gardie. It's that time of year. It's playoff time. Game 2 just completed last night in the NLDS. Game 3 and 4 this Friday and Saturday. But getting right into it, Braves coming out with a much-needed split, winning Game 2, losing Game 1, although a valiant comeback, a valiant effort in Game 1, losing to the Phillies 7-6, an NL East divisional series. Weird, both National League division series. It's an NL West series and an NL East series. Arguably the two more dominant divisions in the National League, kind of squaring off, I guess, for like the true divisional crown, if you will. But again, taking a look quickly at the box scores here from Game 1, 7-6, Max Fried getting tagged, 8 runs on 8 hits on 8 hits, 6 runs in only 3 1/3 inning, including an error for Max Fried, a throwing error that allowed 2 of those runs to score. And then again, a valiant effort on the comeback, but just not enough. The Phillies just 2 runs in the first, 2 in the third, 2 in the fourth, 1 in the fifth, just too much for the 3-run ninth inning for the Braves to overcome. However, Game 2 was a completely different story with Kyle Wright. And Gardie, I mean, just, I can think of about 10 Wright puns. There's one right there. But again, kind of looking at both, it was really the tale of two games. And I think that the Braves showed in both games, certainly they're a team that's willing to compete and they're not going to roll over.
You're not wrong, Ryan. I'd say you're right. They definitely did compete there. They did compete. I think that what you saw in Game 1 was a little bit of that rest versus rust. The bats were a little slower. You saw that Max Fried got as you said, got tagged a little bit. But they did have that 9th inning rally, which was a very good rally. It was a 2-out home run. And then they came out and scored 3 runs. Kyle Wright now 17-1 since June 23rd when he starts. Or excuse me, the team is 17-1. He didn't necessarily get credit for all his wins, but the Braves are looking good. Ronald Acuna Jr. had a great quote. He got hit in Game 2 on the hand by that menace, Zach Wheeler. Someone get him a misdemeanor assault charge like Devontae Adams just got. But Ronald Acuna Jr. after when he was asked about it after the game said that the team wanted to take him out to be safe, but he said, "I'm not coming out. I already missed one postseason. I'm not missing another." Which for a guy who's kind of one of the big franchise guys, trying to make that playoff push, especially in baseball where it's really hard to repeat, but you have a guy who didn't even play in last year's postseason, who's as electric as him, a clubhouse guy, a focal point in the clubhouse, to be saying something like that, that's bodes well in that environment and in that locker room, which I think is it's the right way that they should be handling this.
Yeah, and the not so right thing to do in Game 1, this just, we're going to keep going with this. The not right thing to do, the Braves leaving 9 runners on base in Game 1, only hitting 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. That's really the story of Game 1. The Phillies hitting 5 for 12 with runners in scoring position. So again, just, you put guys on, you got to get them in, and you can't leave 9 runners on base at home. Especially against a divisional opponent that you've taken care of business against in the start of the year. But I agree with you on that rest versus rust thing. Again, clearly a different story. The Braves 3 for 4 with runners in scoring position in Game 2. The Phillies 0 for 3, both teams leaving 4 runners on base during that one. But we also have to talk about some big news coming up just before the playoffs. Spencer Strider signing a 6-year, $75 million deal with the Atlanta Braves, extending his contract now even further into with an expiration date of 2029. And Gardie, you sent over this Jeff Passan tweet, and I'll kind of give the quick cliff notes and let you dive into it here. But pretty much, and I quote, "Few teams have cores as good as Atlanta, with no team is close to so locking up its core." And Gardie, I mean, you sent me over the list and you sent me over the tweet, and it's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, you have Austin Riley, who's signed till 2033. Michael Harris II, 2032. Matt Olson, 2030. Spencer Strider, 2029. Ronald Acuna Jr., 2028. Vaughn Grissom, 2028. Ozzy Albies, 2027. William Contreras, 2027. Kyle Wright, 2026. So you have 3 or 4 years before, you have 4 years until you're missing 3 players out of your core. But in reality, all of your major bats and infield pieces and outfield pieces are signed until a decade from now. That's like, talk about the right way to build an organization. It's that, like, how it goes to something we talked to, sorry for stammering there, at the beginning of the year with the Matt Olson signing. They gave him that money in that contract because he's a young guy. He can be a part of this franchise, and you don't have to worry about, wow, we're giving him all this money for what he's doing right now. But, he's going to have those 3 years at the end of the career where we're paying him like he's an all-star, and he's not doing like an all-star anymore because he's a lot younger. So this is, as a Braves fan, it's something to be super excited for when you think about, not only are we a contender for the World Series this year, but we're going to be a contender for the next 5 to, if not 10 years, as long as these guys continue to play the way that they have been playing, and even if not grow, because they're all so young. So it's something to be very excited for. Something to be thinking about, though, is now Game 3. As you said, we split in Atlanta. So that's, it's a real series now because the road team did win a game. But we're coming into Citizens Bank Park. It is not necessarily as electric as Truist Park, but Philadelphia fans are known for what Philadelphia fans are. And we do have to face Aaron Nola, who's one of their, that's a word. That's
Psycho.
definitely a word.
Psycho.
Maybe that's why they both start. Well, yeah, I mean, but Aaron Nola is on the bump for the Phillies, and Aaron Nola is a very good pitcher this season overall. I'd definitely say he's the number kind of 2 guy along with Zach Wheeler. But in 34.1 innings pitched, he's given up 30 hits and 14 earned runs for 3.7 ERA against the Braves. That's not very good. That's actually something to be excited about if you're a Braves fan. Now, especially, they've lost a game. They're not feeling that same burst of energy that they had by beating the Mets and then winning Game 1. But also at the same time, the Braves haven't said who's going to be pitching for them Game 3, Rye. I think you know a little bit more about that than I do. But so I feel like there's an interesting dichotomy of, who you're facing, but you don't necessarily know who's pitching for you. And maybe you prepare a little differently for this game.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting predicament. Obviously, Spencer Strider a little banged up towards the end of the year. So right now, Brian Snitker leaning certainly more towards Charlie Morton, a little bit more veteran experience. We saw it in the movie Major League. Rather than going with Ricky Wild Thing Vaughn, we went with Eddie Harris to start the game with just, a little bit more experience. And at the end of the day, you can start Strider and have him pitch kind of less innings and tax the bullpens. And right now, it's looking like if this series goes to 5 games, you're playing 3 games in 3 days. Like that, I don't know if you necessarily want to tax the bullpen in Game 3, especially in a situation where it is not an elimination game. You don't have a chance to put them away in Game 3. So my inkling is going to be that it's probably going to be Charlie Morton, just a guy with playoff experience who was pretty dominant last year in the playoffs. And again, I just think a situation where you have options, and it's just a matter of really where Brian Snitker is going to go with it. Gardie, back to your point, even on just locking up a young core, I just did a quick little Google search here. The only guy who's really in the everyday lineup they would be having to re-sign next year, or 2 of them, Kenley Jansen, Dansby Swanson. And again, Kenley Jansen, obviously a 35-year-old pitcher, 35-year-old reliever. He's obviously a dominant closer. You signed him for $16 million for the year. But Dansby was on a 1-year, $10 million deal. So that's really, if you can lock Dansby Swanson up at age 28 to another 5-6 year deal, you've got the core for a very, very long time. But kind of swinging to the other side of the country, I guess, if you will, we also have to talk about the NLDS on the other side, the NL West DS, if you want to call it even that. The San Diego Padres and the LA Dodgers taking on locked up at Dodger Stadium. Dodger fans, as per usual, showing up in the third inning because, traffic on the 405 is miserable. Dodgers taking game one with Jose Urias on the mound with a 5-3 win. And then same time, same place, different result. The next day in game two with the San Diego Padres winning 5-3. Yu Darvish getting the win in that one. But Gardie, again, both series, I'm inclined to think that both are going to go to 5.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think it's really interesting with the way the Padres played at the end of the season, the way they played after the trade deadline, going out and getting all these players, and then kind of sticking up the joint a little bit. Didn't look great, but they've looked really good. They looked really good against the Mets. They showed a lot of fight too against the Mets. They have really good starting pitching. That's the interesting thing. Yu Darvish last night. They have Blake Snell going to the bump coming up for this next game. So it's really a matter of whose bullpen, which are both mediocre, can perform slightly better. And also it's kind of one of those who can hit more home runs. And that's a very interesting dichotomy versus what we're dealing with here in Atlanta with the Phillies, where it's more of a pitcher's duel throughout. I think the 7-6 game that we saw in game one, I think that's not going to be the case going forward. I think you're going to see a lot more 3-0, 2-0, 2-1 games for the rest of the series, because Kenley Jansen is an elite closer. We did take him away from the Dodgers, so that was a big hit to their bullpen, big impact to our bullpen. So I think the way these two series are going to play out in those 5 games is going to be radically different, and I think it's going to be a really interesting collision course when the Braves advance to the NLCS. But with that, we are a fan show brought to you by Fan Media Network. Maybe I, who am in Philadelphia, maybe I'll brave the storm and go to a game in the bank for the fans. So if you have any stories from Truist Park about the electric walkout that they do for opposing pitching changes mid-inning with the lights, any of those things, please let us know. We'd love to have you on, or just tell your story about it. So please let us know, and let's go Braves.
To host a fan show or appear as a fan on a fan show, create a profile in Fan Media Network. Then look for the news page in our website and fan show resources page. Help yourself. We give show hosts a show graphic in team colors, a simple short show format, tips on pre- and post-production, ideas to get fans and guests on your show, Apple News distribution and show sponsorship sales and services to help featured show hosts earn money. Show hosts use our iPhone app to publish their shows. Our website supports Android users.